When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hit me. Listen to me now. Is you with me now? Then biggie, biggie bounce. I know you dig the way I switch my style. Holla, holla. Get your freak on. 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 Get your freak on.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie here at Black Star Network. Each and every week, we are continuing to bring you balanced content, a way to help you figure out how to navigate the life in which we're living. So much seems to be happening in the space and places that we're going, and oftentimes it can be overwhelming. I know we come on this show and y'all are thinking, oh, they're going to tell us how to get it together, how to manage our time, how to put things in perspective. And of course, we're going to do that, but we're going to give it to you with a little shot of realism. Each and every day that we move and breathe, we have an opportunity to change the course of our own history. Yes, you are an individual, and how you navigate that space is extremely important. Today, we're going to be joined by Dr. Tierney, Charlotte Avery, Pastor JT, and Stacey Owens. Let me tell you, when we're talking about August and getting ready for back to school, there are so many emotions that our children bring to us, and oftentimes as adults, we do not know. Okay, be honest now. You do not know. I do not know. We all don't know sometimes how to address our kids, how to help them manage things that are happening in the classroom, how to talk to their teachers, how to deal with bullying, how to deal with playground issues, making friends, passing and sharing the ball, little things like down to sharing crayons. Today, we're going to give it to you, and we're going to give it to you good. Welcome in, everybody.
Hello, Dr.
Hello. You know, it's funny because as I was listening to myself talk, I had all these flashbacks to when I was a little kid, getting ready to go back to school. And I was thinking, oh my God, I pray these kids don't go through half of the things that some of us went through when we were children. I remember this one person individually who literally was consistently always talking smack. It was like they were always looking for, some way to push my buttons or make me feel like I was less than as a little girl. And, our kids are going to be dealing with all of these things. They've been home for 2 years, pretty much, give or take, and they've off and on been in and out of the classroom in these social environments. I'd like to ask each of you a question, honestly, because I think sometimes our audience doesn't think we know how to have fun and bring levity to some of our conversations. But so were you the type of kid who was getting it or giving it when it came to things in the classroom, talking to the teacher and dealing with people on the playground? What did that look like for y'all? Oh, Pastor JT down there just laughing. Dr. Brittany, she raised her hand first. Come on.
I raised my hand first, so let me get out here out front. I was giving it. I'll own it. I was giving it. But, I was that kid that I knew how to keep my mouth quiet so I wouldn't get in trouble in school. So, but then at home, I was blah, 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 blah. So when the teacher wasn't looking, I was the one that would, okay, then you got the wrong answer on your paper. Or, you need to do that. Why you wear them today? Or I was a life coach in training.
Oh, little chatterbox. The little chatterbox of the classroom, just going to tell everybody everything that they are or are not doing well. All right, Pastor JT, tell us what it was like being little JT.
Wow. Little JT probably, he's no different than Big JT. Well, I'm actually smaller now than I was in high school, but that's a different thing. So I'm little JT now. But after I got my tonsils taken out, man, I just, everything that was around me, it disappeared and it somehow ended up in my belly. So I had to be quick with it. I had to be on my toes because I knew that I came in carrying a little bit more weight So I needed to, be ready. So I would normally, hit them before they hit me, but not necessarily in the physical, but, playing the dozens. But I was still, kind of like Dr. Tierney said, I kind of found a way to do it in a way where I didn't get into too much trouble. There were a couple of times that I had to stay a little bit later after school. I had to go to, my coaches, and because I played sports, a lot of, in school suspensions or out of school suspensions were intervened with a little visit to my coach's office. So let's just say, boards and me, we had a love-hate relationship, but thank God for grace. I believe that those moments kind of made me who I am today. I can take it and I can give it. But man, I love school. I love that time, but it was definitely an interesting time back in the 80s and 90s as I grew up and went to school.
Very interesting. Charlotte Avery.
So I was small and mighty then, just like I'm small and mighty now. I think my small and mighty now is more channeled than it was when I was in high school and grade school. I mean, I had a lot of inadequacies that I felt. And so a lot of time in my behavior, I would overcompensate, let's say that, for some of those things. But yeah, I was still a firecracker, and I still had very quick wit when I was in school. I never got thrown out of class because I would just walk out before I got thrown out. And then, and even now as an adult, I tell on myself, but even back then, when I knew I was getting in trouble, I would call my mom. We had pay phones back then, in high school. And I would call my mom on the phone and I would tell her, look, this is what happened. Yes, I did it. And I would just be prepared for whatever the consequences I was going to get when I got home. But I just made sure that I told my truth and the truth so that when my mom heard about it, she could already say, Charlotte told me.
That's very, very interesting. I'm going to dive into that. Steph Owens.
I was so socially awkward that I tried to stay under the radar away from everyone. So I was very quiet. I would open up to people once I got to know you and I could trust you a little bit. Then you had the opportunity to see my real personality. But for the most part, I was the quietest person in the room. You wouldn't even know I was there, but I would know everything that was going on around me. And I was prepared to take action. But I think just because of some of my insecurities and some of the things that, we have great teachers, and we have some teachers that can be assets and some that can be liabilities for you. If I was in a setting like that where you were telling me what I couldn't do and, enforcing some of my inadequate thoughts about myself, then I would just become very quiet and disconnect and try to just take the safest route to get out of the situation.
As I'm listening to each of us share our stories, there are going to be parents who are thinking, I see my kiddo in each and every one of us. And as we're talking about how do we get these kids prepared to go back into the classroom, I'm going to be honest. And those of you who are from all of these homes where your kids have a voice and your kids have a say, they literally can talk to parents and their siblings and their aunties and uncles in the home in a way that the school is not going to allow. And oftentimes when we think about what classroom management looks like going forward, kids have been at home just kind of doing what they want to do. How do you think, Stacey, that we're going to be able to turn the tide or stem the tide, if you will, to helping these kids understand that mouthiness at home and in the classroom are not going to be created or treated equally?
So I think we have to spend time expressing the difference and bringing awareness to the differences that what will happen at home and what will happen at school. But I sort of have a different view than most because we prepare our staff for being culturally relevant, because sometimes the way I speak at home, that's who I am, right? So why shouldn't that be honored in the classroom? Now, I should have some boundaries and I should have some limits. But as a teacher or educator, I should understand the environment in which my students are coming from so that I can speak their language or understand the differences in the language styles so that that doesn't become a hindrance in the classroom. I think we have a responsibility to not expect people to just completely leave who you are at home and then come here and try to be something different. Let's respect those differences, try to understand each other, and then try to teach you. How can you improve on that? So if it's something that I want you to do as a teacher or a way that I want you to speak and things that are, okay, that's just above what I need you to do for me, then I need to teach that to you. But I don't need to just erase what you're going to come to the table with.
When we come back after the break, I want to dive into this a little bit more because, honestly, I see kids already being sent to the office. I think when we left the academic year, teachers left already up to here. I think students were over all of the mask mandates and everything that related to having to be socially and emotionally engaged on an ongoing basis and not having the skill set to communicate. When we come back after the break, let's talk about it. How do we help our kids have the discipline skills that they need before they get to the classroom this semester? When we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat at the Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you've heard, each of us in our own right, we're cut ups in some kind of way. And then we manage to pull ourselves together and, become these model students. And Stacey was sharing with us the value and importance of what it meant to not only have teachers who are culturally relevant, but to also to engage our children in what it looks like to have, I won't use the word substantive conversation because that's kind of a big word for small kids, but how do we teach our kids to articulate and communicate how they feel, what's going on with them, what they like, what they don't like? We are in this stage and environment still where when kids say that something is wrong, they're labeled as tattletales and kids don't like them. And I want us to come into this space where we're teaching our children, how do they balance this nuanced environment that they're going to be in? And many of them for the first time are coming back to school. Stacey, let's top it off. So when you talk about being culturally relevant, there's some things that happen in homes that aren't happening normally across a lot of environments. Some kids come from two-parent homes, some kids are single-parent homes, some kids are being raised by grandparents and uncles and aunts and cousins. How is being culturally relevant to the child's situation important to how they show up to the classroom?
Well, it's important because I need to know as an educator, as a teacher, what your home life looks like. What are you bringing to the table? Because we learn from our experiences, right? So we take our past experience and then we build on that. So if I'm bringing my experiences to the table as an educator, you need to understand, what's the language? What is the house looking like? And then now I'm going to apply to that. What do I need for you to be able to do in this environment? People like to call it code switching. But do we really want our students just to know how to code switch? Because we set barriers when we do that as well. I think we should have an awareness, and you should set the expectation. But we just shouldn't have that one-sided expectation where this is what you come and do for me, and then when you go home, do something different. Because for some kids that work, those that know how to code switch and learn it naturally, they do that well. Those who don't, and they only can bring who they are at the table, what they'll do is disconnect from you. So if you can't make this relevant to who I am, then I'm not going to be interested in engaging with you, and then you can't teach me nothing. So that's the importance of being culturally relevant, is so that I can be able to engage with you effectively. But I got to know who you are first before I can do that.
Mm-hmm. I think you bring up a very valid point, because code switching is one of those things that kids often learn. And when we were growing up, it was called appropriateness. You learn how to be appropriate at the grocery store, how to be appropriate at school, the library, how to be appropriate at church, in a variety of settings. But today, kids seem to be one note in the sense that they're coming out of the home and then moving into society totally unprepared and unequipped with the things that they need in order to be successful. Now, Charlotte Avery, family strategist, wife of one, mom of 7, you have some great tips and tools that you use in order to be able to help your kids discover what having a disciplined life looks like. How do you prepare and engage your children?
So, in our house, we talk about respect a lot. We talk about respecting yourself, respecting God, respecting your family. Because, we teach our children, their name means something, their last name, you're an Avery. So, you can't just be going out here acting up thinking that your behavior and what you say and do is not going to impact our family, especially knowing that all of our children are matriculating through the same school. And so, we teach our kids, how important respect is on every level, so that when they do go to school, when it comes to respecting themselves, their peers, their administrators, their teachers, that flows over from the home environment into the school environment. And don't get me wrong, like my kids, I have some kids who have some very strong wills or what have you, and some of my children are very justice driven. And so sometimes when they see teachers or administrators going off to the left or right, they want to utilize their voice. Even if it pertains to them, it could pertain to them. It could be, a disservice done to a classmate or whatever. And I have some children that'll be like, no, you can't do that. But I have to teach my children how to appropriately utilize their power, knowing that, first of all, you don't go to school disrespecting teachers, administrators, and all of that. But, just like we tell our children, you can talk to me about anything, even if it's something that you think I'm not going to like, as long as you're respectful. So I don't have a problem when my children respectfully go to a teacher and an administrator and share their thoughts and opinions. What I do have a problem with is if they get beside themselves and lose self-control, and now I've got to go in and help them to do some reconnaissance on their behavior in the aftermath. And so I just think it really goes back to, I think that what we teach our children in the home, if we're doing it the right way, it will flow appropriately back into the school and to sports and to other areas of their life.
Our children are engaged with so many people when they are away from us. And in listening to Charlotte talk, one of the things that I heard her say is about this respect and how to be a child. And oftentimes our kids have this grown folk speak, if you will, when they're out and about and in this space, because a lot of what they hear, they're learning from inside the home. Now, Pastor JT, we all talked about for many, many sessions that we've had together related to this idea that everything does begin in the home. And oftentimes when it comes to discipline in the home, it can be run amok. What kind of, I don't want to say advice, but when we think about this season in which we're living in, when children are, I had to put a bubble in my mouth. I'm about to say something on air that I probably should not say. Children, as Charlotte said, are spirited and literally are living outside what we've taught them in the home. Discipline, how do we do, okay, so I'll put it like this. How do we break the child without breaking the spirit? Because that's a delicate balance, because we want them to be empowered. We want them to have balance. We want them to be able to, say what's bothering them. But at the same time, I've watched parents literally cut their children down and they're no longer the same when I see them from year to year or event to event. Talk to us about being able to break behavior, but not break the spirit of the child.
Wow. Dr. Jacquie, that's a great question. I'll first say this. When you think about mentoring, me being a part of the 100 Black Men of America, our motto is what they see is what they'll be. Mm-hmm. And so we think about that from a mentoring standpoint, but I believe that flows in every area of life. So now when we talk about the children, we are seeing many versions of the parents. And so, I said, I have a very different approach when it comes to preaching. I'm very kind of upfront and just kind of give it to you the way it is. But I said that, it's a travesty, and I'm speaking to my church. So I don't know what goes on in all the other churches in America, but I was speaking to my church and I told them, I said, it's a travesty that you're trying to beat you out of your child. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let
that resonate, audience. Let that resonate.
Yeah.
Trying to beat you out of your child. Come on, Pastor.
That's so good. Yes.
Yeah. Because they are only giving us, the public, what they have seen in private. It's just like your diet. You can be upset at the scale all day long. I mean, you can want to throw it away. You can go and get 2 or 3 of them. But what you're putting inside of you is what's going to come out and what's going to show. So if your child is digesting this, like if you're sitting at home and you're watching VH1 and your child is next to you, and you all are able to have a conversation about everything that's going on Love and Hip Hop and all of the other shows, you're not necessarily parenting your child, because we have a lot of parents that are actually babysitting their children. YouTube is parenting their kids. Social media is parenting their kids. And so then now when their children are at school, they are just as shocked at what happened as the teacher, because they don't know their child themselves. So I believe that we may have to go back to parenting and then really just kind of looking at that. And now parenting is not a cookie cutter way, because I know Charlotte probably will definitely give us a lesson on that, being the wife of one and the mother of 7. I pray for you every day, Charlotte. But I know that having 7 different children, 7 different personalities, you have to parent them different. But being able to parent, you have to be present. And there are so many of our parents now that are absent, not physically, but mentally they're absent. Emotionally, they're absent. Socially, they're absent. And so then now the only time that they are present is in a corrective mode. So now I'm coming back to your original question. You break the child when you're trying to break a habit that you have allowed to create. So if you see it starting, you create those healthy boundaries. I think we said this a couple of shows back about being able to give your child a voice, but letting them know that they don't have a say. And I think that if a child believes that they can control their parent or they can manipulate their parent in the house, they feel that they have that same power of manipulation when they get into the school or when they get into sports or they get into dance or they get into cheer. They just don't turn it on in certain areas. That's who they are. So I believe that the thing that we have to dial down and really get to the root of is identifying who our child is and then training them up in the way that they should go. And if you have a picture of who you want your child to be, you will be intentional on training them in that way. If you want a respectful child, you will be intentional on training them that way. Old school, you can't be in here when grown folks are talking. You don't butt and give your opinion. I'm not having a debate with you. It's just certain things that are non-negotiables, I believe, that have to be established. And I'll say this as I exit, but I think that we are kind of in a very interesting phase. And I always go back to the Bible, but I always think about when people call us the Joshua generation, right? But I think that we're kind of past the Joshua generation. Now, I think I'm a part of the Joshua generation. I think that the generation that we're seeing now that have school-age children, that's that Judges generation. That's that generation that didn't have a leader. That's that generation that there was no Joshua, that for about 6 chapters in Judges, they lived lawlessly until God identified, man, these people going to kill themselves. We need to have somebody in place that's going to give them some type of direction. And I think we're in that space right now. This is the generation that was so upset with everything that mama and daddy and big mama and big daddy did that they live now saying, I'm not going to do that to my kids. I'm going to let them, I'm going to do this. And we don't know that we are creating a generation that has no sense. They have no direction. They have no guidance. And it's all coming back to what we are allowing to happen in our homes, and it is being exemplified out in the streets.
So when we come back after the break, we're going to unpack that a little bit, because I want to talk with Dr. Tierney about kids and coaching. Now, we've just heard that there are so many things that our kids do not have. But there's a platform which all of us should be building as a foundation for our children to be ready for moving forward when we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
These are the only bins that will accommodate larger rollerboards.
They put 10 in here?
10, and you don't come out till you die. And you eat him, you poop him.
Oh my God.
So what?
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back, everybody. As you can tell, we told you we were going to give it to you, and we're going to give it to you good. You see, when we talk about what it means to be balanced and how to live a balanced life, it means sometimes turning over rocks and having conversations about situations that are just uncomfortable. And oftentimes our children's behavior, how they interact with other people, how the school treats them, how other parents look at you or view you in the community. Our children can feel that and they can sense it. Our kids know when they're being slighted. I want to talk to Dr. Tierney for just a minute about kids and coaching, because a part of being ready to get back to school is building these routines, getting them in these new habits and preparing them for what's going to be next. But sometimes as parents, we're not ready ourselves. Hey, Dr. Tierney.
Hey, Dr. Jacquie.
Let me tell you, in your work, and I know you do a lot with all age groups, and as these kids are getting prepared and ready to go back to school, and we've been talking a lot about balance through undoing certain behaviors and things of that nature. What does that look like in the realm of coaching and kiddos?
So before I address coaching with the kids, it really comes back to kind of what Pastor JT was talking about and Charlotte Avery. It comes back to the parents and coaching with the parents. So when you're in that space where you are basically raising yourself and those behaviors you're seeing are the things that you did as a kid, you have to take that moment to stop and say, okay, well, wait a minute. What are those unresolved things that I didn't address or look at? Most of what our kids see is caught, not taught. So we don't instinctively sit them down and say, hey, here's how you be disrespectful, but if they constantly hear you talking so and such about Mrs. Smith down the street, or you're constantly gossiping and spilling tea about their teachers and other adults, then guess what they're going to do? They're going to learn that disrespect at your feet and overhearing your conversations, So it's not always just, as Pastor JT was saying, sometimes we're just sitting on the couch and what they're watching on TV and they're hearing your commentary. They're hearing how you either respect or disrespect other people. And so that's where they then start to develop their social norms of how to interact and behave in these different, situations at school, at home, on the playground, in church, or wherever they might be. So we have to first take a look at us and say, okay, how am I exhibiting and being a good example for my children? And if you're not a parent, I always say I'm not a parent, but I am a TT. I am a godmother, and so I have a lot of eyes that are also looking at me. So the way that you carry yourself is the first thing when we're talking about coaching. Maybe we need to look at, some coaching ourselves as the parent or the godparent or the grandparent or the auntie to make sure that we are being good examples for them. And not just in the things not to do sense, but also in the sense of, okay, how can I teach my child to go after their dreams when I'm sitting here riddled with fear and not going after mine? How can I teach my child to boldly walk in their purpose when I'm sitting here not wanting to invest in myself and discovering and tapping into my purpose? We need to walk it like we're talking it. We need to walk it like we're teaching it to them. Again, a lot of what is that our children do, it is caught, not necessarily taught, So that will just offset a lot of the things how we were just talking about trying to untrain, or break these behaviors out of the child. This will stop a lot of them from taking root, in the first place. Now, of course, our children are not always with us. They're, again, at school, at church, and watching different things at slumber parties. So they'll pick up things along the way. This is why it is good to get your child, your student, your niece, again, nephew, in either some therapy or some coaching, depending on where they are and what you're seeing happen. This is not the time to say, oh no, they don't need no therapy, they don't need no coaching. They just, let's stop that. Just general, particularly, please, let's stop that thought for all of our sakes, for the adults and for the children. Coaching and therapy is a good thing to invest in, and so sometimes when we're seeing some of these different behaviors or these different things that the children are saying, getting them really early into some therapy and some coaching so that they can talk to someone else. Sometimes it may be that they don't necessarily want to bring mom what's happening, but they'll talk to their coach or they'll talk to their therapist to really get to the nitty gritty of what they're feeling and what they're thinking and what they're seeing as their little personalities are being developed. So that is something that even if it's just a once a month thing. I have friends that have children that they are in therapy just on a once a month basis, just to talk through all the things that are happening in life. If we think it's stressful for us, I couldn't imagine being a kid right now. The most I had to worry about was Precious trying to take my lunch money. But I just told y'all I had a mouth on me, so she didn't get my lunch money that often. But still, that was all I had to worry about as a child. But these kids have a lot more to worry about. Bullying being like cyberspace, and so giving them that space, letting them know that it's okay to do that, to practice that, and even going as a family. So they say, hey, mommy does her therapy and I have my therapy. Kind of normalizing those things for them early and often would definitely help them as they grow from little people into the adults that we ultimately want them to be.
Absolutely. I want to bring Charlotte Avery and Stacey Owens into the conversation because oftentimes one of the things that Dr. Tierney just mentioned was being able to normalizing coaching for kids, normalizing kids being heard and seen, because oftentimes we discount or, girl, you're going to be okay, or they didn't really mean it that way. And at that moment, we totally not validated what that child was feeling and how they feel like they may need to articulate themselves. Stacey, in dealing with that, what are some of the physical cues that you have identified as we guide our parents to understanding their own children?
I think some of the physical cues would be looking for if your child is one of the students who like to talk and like to share, and then they get to a point where they stop talking. Stop sharing. Mm-hmm. Then we need to figure out what caused that disconnect. What made them shut down? A lot of times, I'm an advocate for saying that students should have a voice. They should be able to share whatever is in their heart to share, right? I think going back to what Pastor JT said, though, in terms of making sure, like, this is this generation who feels like they're unguided. We need to provide that guidance, because he's absolutely right. Because one of the biggest arguments that I hear a lot of times from students is, well, the teacher don't respect me. So now we don't have a clear definition of respect, because they feel like because their voice was heard, if you don't jump on and just allow what their thoughts are to, then now that becomes you don't respect. And then if you still have some of your old heads in the classroom teaching, they're like, I just want you to do what I said because that's what I said to do. I don't even think we should have this dialogue. So I think, just having the conversation and clearing up and looking for, if I have a kid that's not afraid to share, they stop sharing, that's a cue. Or if I have a kid that is now showing some emotional signs, like I don't like to go to school or I don't want to go to school, we should tap into that to find out what's happening with the dialogue between the two.
That makes sense. I want to ask Charlotte this question because, Charlotte, how many times do you have 7 stomach aches? Because those are some telltale signs that oftentimes something is going on with the kid and they don't want to be engaged or involved. And we often miss these emotional cues that our children, try to display to us because they don't have the words. So, Charlotte, what are some of the signs that you see? So hopefully our parents will be able to identify some of those signs with their children.
So that's a really great question. Because my children are in various ages, I have children in elementary school, I have children in middle school, and I have children in high school. So there are three different, cues that I see. Like with my elementary school children, I usually see, like you were talking about, I don't feel good, I don't want to go to school today, or what have you. With some of my middle school kids, I can just usually tell like in behavior and demeanor. One of my children who, is migraine prone, like usually if she's just like, I have a migraine, I have a headache, I always have a headache, that's also telling me beyond a migraine that something is wrong, something is not right. She's not feeling some kind of way, she's dealing with some stressful situation at school. But, with some of my other children who are very good at using their voice, I want to say this to parents. If your child comes to you and says to you, I feel like I need therapy, that is not a mark against you as a parent. Because there are some things as parents that we may not have the capacity to deal with our children. And like Dr. Tierney was saying, there are some things that our children might need to share, whether it's about us or something at school or whatever, that they just might not want to share with us right now because they need to be able to be equipped to share those things. So first of all, your children saying that they need therapy is really big. But what I find, and I did this, so I'm being very transparent, but what I find and found with myself is that sometimes we think, well, when our children say that they want to go into therapy, we look at that as a big T word. Instead of looking at a therapist as a part of your support system, we now are like, oh my gosh, well, is there something that I did? Is there something wrong with me? Are they going to talk about my parenting skills? Well, so what if they do? Because the reality of it is that is a sign that your children are crying out for a level of help that they feel like you at this particular time might not be able to provide. So I want to say this, therapy is good. And I also think that as parents, we need to be vulnerable with our children, because I have told my children, yes, your mom sees a therapist. I thank God for my therapist. Her name is Tiffany, and I tell my kids about her, right? But I'm like, I thank God for Tiffany because Tiffany helps me to stay sane when I'm dealing with all of y'all. So y'all want to love Tiffany. Y'all want me to talk to Tiffany, right? But I want them to have I think it's good for your children to have their own person, even if that person is outside of you. So honor that and don't just disregard it, because it's already a big thing that your children were brave enough to come to you and say, you know what, mom or dad, I feel like I need therapy. Honor that. Find them somebody. And, finding a good therapist is trial and error. So don't just say, okay, well, this therapist sucks, so we're not going to go back to therapist. No, try again.
It takes a village. I think that those are excellent observations. At first, if you don't succeed, try and try again. It's something that we've all heard since we were at a very young age. And when we come back after the break, teaching your kids to be empowered is a definite trial and error when we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
You had me at Allison 10-speed transmission. Features available on GMC Sierra Heavy Duty. Premium and capable. That's professional grade from GMC.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can see, we love our kids and we love our families, and our community is shaped by how well we are able to communicate what's going on, not only in our homes, but what's happening in the schools, and how our children are able to communicate to us what they have need of. Now, I get it. Everybody here today can say we grew up in the what happens in this house stays in this house rule. But let me just tell you, we don't live in that world anymore. We have come to a space and time in life where we need to teach our kids how to say what's going on, if it is bothering them, if it is hindering them, if it's going to keep them from becoming the best version of themselves, both as young people and as adults. I want to invite everybody back in now, because, when we talk about what this empowerment looks like, everybody's going to do it different. I will be the first one to say, y'all, that another bubble. I will be the first one to say that I am the auntie who believes in empowering children to be able to have a voice and to have a say. Now, I agree with Charlotte that it is important that they know how to say what it is they need to say without being respectful. And I will even take a little attitude and tone, simply because I recognize there's emotion involved. And I don't want to be guilty of squashing a kid's emotions and not allowing them to get through, get past, get over whatever it is that they're going through. Charlotte, you mentioned something. You literally said, making certain that kids are able to say what they need to say, even if you're the victim. I want to ask each of you, why is it so hard for parents to be put in a bad light with outsiders? I know it's a loaded question, but sometimes we don't come correct with our own kids, and we do more damage in the home than good. Pastor JT.
Charlotte had her hand up.
Charlotte raised her hand first. Come on, Char.
So let me just say, who I am today is not who I've always been, right? Mm-hmm. I have been that parent. I tell people all the time, hi, my name is Charlotte. I'm a recovering yeller. I have been that parent who has caused verbal and emotional damage to the people that I love in my house. I'm not proud of it. But the thing is that, we live these lives and we want people to look at us like we are these great and wonderful people. Charlotte's a family strategist. Charlotte is on TV doing this, and Charlotte is whatever. Charlotte's an author. Charlotte's an entrepreneur. But, the thing is that we have a problem. We like to deal with other people's dirty laundry. And I don't know why we want to do that, but I don't even like dealing with the laundry that I have, but we don't want to deal with our stuff. And so what happens is that when we see things or we hear things, we have to now look in the mirror at ourselves to say, you know what? You're not as great and wonderful as you think you are. And your children will tell you that. And so sometimes it's very difficult for us, and we don't want people outside. We don't want the outsiders to think that we're anything less than how they see us. When the reality of it is that we have some of our own stuff that we need to deal with, and we have some truth that we need to deal with, and we have some healing that we need to deal with, because if we don't, then you'll be like me. You'll be the mom and the wife who has bled on your husband and bled on your children. And now you have all of this, recon to do to heal it and make it better in your family. And so I think it really comes down to the fact that, what happens in the house stays in the house. And yes, we have said that, but like you said, Dr. Jackie, we don't live in that day and age anymore, and our children are different people than who we are. And that's not good enough. That's not good enough for them. It's not just what happens in our house. They have things, they need to be heard and they need to be felt. And truth be told, us being told that what happens in the house stays in the house was not the best thing, because there's so much physical and emotional and verbal abuse that goes on, that if somebody felt like they could have told it, we could have been healing far quicker. Much more quickly past it, So I think it's really being able to look at our own stuff and our laundry, and being able to be vulnerable and being able to expose yourself. I don't have a problem with exposing myself. I have no problem with saying, yeah, I did that. I've been there and I've done that. And I'm so glad that I'm moving past that. My children today will tell you who I am today is not who I was, before I wrote the 40-day Tone of Voice Tone Down. But I could have only written that book when I was willing to look deeply at myself and do my own work.
Do your own work. Come on, Dr. Tierney.
So I'm just gonna jump right in where Charlotte just hit it. So a lot of times it's not so much that we're looking at ourselves from this place of perfection. It's really because a lot of parents are walking around with this shame, this guilt, the imposter syndrome, this negative narrative that they're telling themselves. So how dare you, my child, my whoever, my husband, tell me what I already feel and think and know about myself. So that just makes it bigger. And I don't want to look at it, because then if I look at it, then I have to face it and own it for myself. And I'm not ready to own it because I'm not ready or don't know how to heal through it. I don't see how God can perfect me in that thing. So the longer that I pretend like it's not there and I put on this mask, I put on this face, I put on this, oh yes, I'm the perfect parent and my child never does anything, then the longer I can then kind of feel good about me. This is why we run to the train wreck. This is why when we see other people falling down or even this could be celebrities, this could be our neighbors, but when we see other people doing wrong or suffering, this is why we go to their dirty laundry, because in some sick, sadistic way, it makes me feel better about myself, because at least I'm not as bad as them. At least I'm not that, but it comes from this place where we haven't, again, back to what I said, that coaching and that therapy for ourselves first. We have to deal with ourselves first so that we can be that safe space for our child to say, hey, mom, when you said this, it kind of hit me or I need some therapy because I really want to talk to someone, because newsflash, it takes a village. So that village may be grandma, auntie, cousin, sister, therapist, coach. I tell people all the time, I have a therapist and a coach in my village, and I don't even have children, So it's one of those things where we have to look at ourselves. We have to be willing to heal ourselves. That community and that village also needs to probably include your pastor. If you are a person of faith, then get Pastor JT on the phone. I'm sorry, Pastor JT, I'm just putting you out there like that. But having that in your village so that you can be a safe space for yourself and for your family and for your child.
Absolutely. Stacey.
I'm going to start by saying amen to what Charlotte and Dr. Tierney said, because those are great points, and that's absolutely the right way to look at it. And then I'm going to take it a step further and say, because I work with that population who's still working under the what has happened in this house stays in this house, because they've been trained that if I tell an outside person, then that's going to stimulate a visit from the social worker, or it's going to be a negative connotation for my family, and I might be taken from my family, right? So I have to spend that time teaching them to how can we effectively look within. Okay, so let's start with what I like to call excusing and accusing. All right, so I tell kids we got to look first within so that we can identify the behaviors that we're doing. And then we can't excuse our own behaviors and then look outward and accuse someone else. We have to take responsibility for the things that we're bringing to the table. That goes for parents. Like, what are you doing that might have added to getting you into this space? So let's identify that first. And then let's look at where you're now placing the blame to make sure that you're not accusing someone else, because that's the only way that we're going to get to the so what, now what. So now that this is going on, now what are you going to do about it? So I'm constantly looking for ways to move you forward so you don't get stuck. So that's how we handle it here.
I'm going to take a break, because I want to ask Pastor JT a very critical question. When we come back after the break, we're going to continue this conversation, and I'm going to ask Pastor JT to talk to us about things that hinder getting help. I think that this is going to be important as we move forward, and then I'm going to wrap up with my reflection. But oftentimes we can't get past the past for us to be able to live in the present so that we can lay a foundation for the future. When we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Does it get better than never getting lost? Does it get better than not parallel parking yourself?
Alexa, ask Smart Feed to feed the dog.
Does it get better than feeding your dog from 50 miles away? Yes, it does. At Buick, we see a future that's even better. Because the life-enhancing innovations you've never even dreamed of, Buick is dreaming of them every day.
Welcome back, everybody. As you can tell, today's A Balanced Life is locked and fully loaded. Pastor JT, we have heard a lot of things related to what is getting in the way of us being able to empower our kids. And a lot of it stems from us not getting ourselves together. But once we have effectively figured out what our problems are as adults, how do we help our children begin to move forward regardless of the foundation that was in the home?
Got you. And Dr. Jacquie, I'm going to be honest with you. I believe that the first thing that you said is paramount. We have to identify our stuff. We have to make sure that we are healing. Hearing Dr. Tierney, hearing Charlotte, hearing Stacy, everything that they said, it just flowed like water. But all of that flowing, it now flows upstream and downstream. Because while our focus is on our kids, our focus also has to be on us. And I'll say this, you can cope in comfort, but you got to confront yourself to really move forward. And it's a lot of people don't like confrontation. And so when we look in the mirror, and I know I'm on the show with a lot of women, I love you all are my sisters, but there is a total line, there is a total business that is $1 billion business, multi-billion dollars, and it all deals with makeup. And people will spend hours in front of a mirror putting on things to conceal, putting on things to hide, to be able to have an appearance that's totally different from what that mirror actually shows you. And a lot of people don't want to look in that mirror. And so they have learned how to look good, but not be good. And so from a parenting standpoint, if we have taken that same thought process, we can't be who we need to be for our kids because we have not first become that thing for ourselves. So I think that that's where it starts. I cannot pass the book on to the teacher. I can't pass the book on to a coach. I can't pass the book on to a mentor. I have to look in the mirror and make sure that I am giving myself the best version of me so I can be the best version of myself that I can be for my child. And even in being the best version of me for my child, I am still going to have some shortcomings because in being the best version of me, I'm my best, but I'm not perfect. And so then that's where we are able to enlist the help of coaches. That's when we're able to enlist the help of therapists. But if I haven't dealt with some of the things that are triggering in me, I was on a show last week and we were talking about blended families. And I shared a startling statistic that over 50% of Americans are in blended families and 52% of marriages end in divorce. So could it be that my child is getting the dirty end of the storm because I haven't dealt with the hurricane that wrecked my house? And so now my child who is in a room, has earphones in their ear, have a phone or a tablet in their face all day, can't cry out because I won't even let my tears fall. So they have become calloused because they are seeing it emulated in front of them and we just move on. And so in the conversation, we were talking about why is it so hard for families to blend? And I was the, other side of the pillow because I said it's hard for families to blend because mama and daughter ain't blending. Mama and son not blending. And because there is friction there, it's definitely going to be hard for somebody brand new to try to come into this. So now I am trying to bring peace into chaos, but I haven't even identified why my child doesn't feel comfortable being with me. So I really believe that as parents, we have to come to the table and just be honest. Am I being the best version of me for me? Because if I'm not being the best version of me for me, I definitely can't be the best version of me for my child. And be honest, open, transparent, and be willing for somebody to give you some help. Because if the village is there, the village don't even know what we need to give you if you don't say, I need the help. Because I grew up in a community, Fontaine, Texas, man, knew everybody on the street. If I had an egg, you had an egg. If Mr. Gilroy across the street had sugar, we had sugar. If Mr. Fitzpatrick next door had flour, we had flour. But if I never went and knocked on the door and said, hey, man, I'm running short on some flour, what I needed was in arm's length. But now, because of pride, that may be a whole nother answer to a question that may have come earlier, because I think that may be the reason why we don't open our mouths and speak, because we are now swarmed with a generation or we're swarmed with a culture now where we have to be perfect online. We only give our pretty pictures. We only give our ESPN top 10 highlights. And we have to always be perfect. But even in the Bible, it said, when you are weak, I am strong. But we don't even give God an opportunity to come and give us strength because we got to be strong for everybody else. I think it's at this point that when the rubber really meets the road, we have to do some real work on self. And when we start working on self, we are now going to be inclined to now bring our child along. And then now it moves from me telling my child that they need to go to a therapist, but we're spending some time in family therapy and we're getting better together.
Thank you for sharing those words. I think as we're listening to Pastor JT talk, Charlotte Avery, Dr. Tierney, and Stacey Owens, one of the things that is a common thread as I've been listening is that we have to heal ourselves before we can heal our home. And oftentimes we don't know what that looks like. We're not certain where to go. And I know we've said a lot of pretty words today, but I hope that it has gotten you to that space of saying, I really do need to take a good, close look in the mirror so that I will be able to help my child navigate their situations and circumstances. You see, a part of living a balanced life is not about being perfect, even though we think we can strive for perfection. What it really requires is practice. and practice leads to progress. I hope that you have enjoyed this roller coaster ride today. I have had my highs and my lows as I've been listening to everyone speak. What comes to mind to me is being able to establish this baseline, this foundation of what's my access point to begin. And as you've heard today, it begins with you, the adult in the home. You see, our kids, as it was already stated, more is caught than taught. So if you're quiet, your kids are going to be quiet. If you're reserved, your kid is going to be reserved. If you're a bull in the china shop, your kid is going to be a bull in the china shop. You know, our kids learn from us behaviors that they will take out into the world. And when they see a situation or a circumstance that mirrors or mimics something that happens in the home, well, guess what? It's going to show up in the school. It's going to show up in the classroom. And not everything we can say is the teacher's fault. They have excellent classroom management skills. But sometimes what we bring from the home to the school can proverbially disturb that apple cart. We've got to be careful. We've got to be cautious, and we have to be watchful. As you are working out what the routines are going to be for your children as school begins to happen, listen to your child. Literally have some conversation with your kid today, right now, in this moment. Bring that kid, those children in the room and say, tell me about school last year. Tell me what are some of your fears? What are some of your concerns? Have them write down for you on a Post-it note or index card. What are some of the things that they are unable to share, that they may have experienced that they are feeling kind of iffy about? Give your children space to share with you what's been hurting them. Don't just send them out into this world ill-equipped and not armed with the tools and resources they need. But how can they have what they need if you as an adult are not willing to allow yourself to be honorable in what you say and what you do? Be vulnerable, be transparent, be open. Give yourself and your child room to grow as we get prepared for this new school year. And you can probably say you'll see greater results because we've all learned together. Thank you all for watching A Balanced Life here on Black Star Network. Bye now.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.